Take a second and notice your body right now. Is your jaw clenched? Are your shoulders creeping up toward your ears? Are you mentally rehearsing a conversation that hasn't even happened yet, trying to predict every possible outcome so you don't get hurt? We live in a culture that glorifies the hustle and tells us that if we just plan enough, worry enough, and micromanage enough, we can control our destiny. But here is the brutal truth. Your need for control isn't keeping you safe. It is keeping you exhausted. In this full-length audiobook, we are going to talk about the hardest skill in human psychology, the art of letting go. I am going to show you how to drop the heavy burden of hyperindependence, stop micromanaging the universe, and find absolute peace in the middle of chaos. Stop fighting the current. Let's dive into the gravity of letting go. The gravity of letting go. How to stop micromanaging the universe and reclaim your peace. Introduction: the White-Knuckle Syndrome. Welcome to the gravity of letting go. Imagine you are a passenger in a car driving down a dark, winding mountain road in the pouring rain. The driver is capable, but the conditions are terrifying. What do? If you are like most people, you press your foot into the floorboard as if you have an imaginary brake pedal. You grip the door handle until your knuckles turn white. You stare intensely through the windshield, calling out hazards, your heart pounding in your chest. You are exerting a massive amount of physical and emotional energy. But let me ask you a logical question. Does your imaginary brake pedal actually slow the car down? Does gripping the door handle keep the tires from slipping? Of course not. Your tension does not change the mechanics of the vehicle. It does not control the weather. The only thing your white-knuckle grip accomplishes is ensuring that you arrive at your destination completely exhausted, terrified, and drained. This is the white-knuckle syndrome, and it is exactly how the vast majority of us live our lives. We try to control the uncontrollable. We try to micromanage the opinions of our coworkers. We try to dictate the timeline of our success. We obsess over the behavior of our partners, the fluctuations of the economy, and the uncertainties of the future. We believe that if we just worry enough, if we just plan for every single worst-case scenario, we can somehow prevent bad things from happening. We think that our anxiety is a protective shield. We think our control is a superpower. But control is an illusion. It is a psychological mirage. The universe is infinitely complex, relentlessly chaotic, and entirely indifferent to your perfectly color-coded 5-year plan. This audiobook is about a terrifying, beautiful word: surrender. We are going to redefine what it means to surrender. We are going to explore why your brain clings so desperately to control, and how that grip is actually the root source of your anxiety. We are going to teach you how to differentiate between what is yours to manage and what is yours to release. By the end of this journey, you will learn how to take your foot off the imaginary brake pedal, let go of the door handle, and finally experience the profound freedom of the ride. Let us begin. Chapter 1: The Anatomy of Hypervigilance. To understand why we desperately try to control everything, we have to look backward. No one is born a control freak. The need to micromanage life is almost always a learned survival mechanism. It is a trauma response wrapped in a socially acceptable package. When you were a child, if you grew up in an environment that was unpredictable, perhaps you had caregivers who were emotionally volatile, or you experienced sudden losses, or you felt financially insecure, your brain learned a very specific lesson. The world is unsafe, and the adults cannot be trusted to protect me. To survive that unpredictability, your brain developed a strategy: hypervigilance. You learned to read the room. You learned to anticipate the moods of others before they even spoke. You learned to plan for disasters so you wouldn't be caught off guard. You learned that the only way to be safe was to handle everything yourself. As you grew into an adult, this hypervigilance became your default operating system. You became the person who organizes every group trip. You became the person who cannot delegate tasks at work because if you want something done right, you have to do it yourself. You became the person who mentally rehearses arguments in the shower so you can never be outsmarted. Society praises this behavior. We call it being driven, detail-oriented, and responsible. But underneath the shiny exterior, it is just high-functioning anxiety. The problem with using control as a safety blanket is that life is inherently uncontrollable. The tighter you try to squeeze sand in your fist, the more it slips through your fingers. When you try to control a world that refuses to be controlled, you create a massive internal friction. You live in a constant state of low-grade panic, waiting for the other shoe to drop. To let go of control, you must first have compassion for the part of you that is clinging to it. The next time you feel the urge to micromanage a situation or spiral into worry, pause. Put your hand on your chest and say to yourself, I know you are trying to keep us safe. I know you are scared of what will happen if we don't handle this. But we are not in the past anymore. We are safe right now, and we do not have to control this. You must teach your nervous system that safety does not come from preventing the storm. Safety comes from knowing you are strong enough to weather it. Chapter 2. The Two Circles of Reality. The ancient Stoic philosophers, men like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca, built an entire operating system for the human mind around one singular concept, the dichotomy of control. Epictetus famously said, "There is only one way to happiness, and that is to cease worrying about things which are beyond the power of our will." Modern psychology adapted this into a framework known as the circle of influence and the circle of concern. Imagine a large circle drawn on a piece of paper. This is your circle of concern. It contains everything you care about: the economy, the weather, what your ex thinks of you, global politics, whether it will rain on your wedding day, and how your boss perceives your latest project. Now, imagine a much smaller circle drawn inside that large circle. This is your circle of influence. It contains only the things you have direct control over: your attitude, your words, your actions, your effort, and your boundaries. The vast majority of human suffering comes from spending our time and emotional energy living in the outer circle. We agonize over the weather. We lose sleep trying to decode a cryptic text message from someone we are dating. We exhaust ourselves trying to make people like us. We are pouring our precious, limited energy into a black hole. People who live highly resilient, peaceful lives do the exact opposite. They ruthlessly focus their energy exclusively on the inner circle. If it is raining on your wedding day, the outer circle response is to cry, scream, and curse the universe for ruining your plans. The inner circle response is to accept the rain, grab an umbrella, and choose to dance in it anyway. You cannot control if a company lays you off. That is the outer circle. You can control how many resumes you send out the next morning, how you update your skills, and how you manage your budget. That is the inner circle. You cannot control whether someone falls in love with you. You can only control showing up authentically, being kind, and communicating your truth. To practice letting go, you must become a ruthless auditor of your own thoughts. When you are stressing about a situation, ask yourself the golden question: is this in my inner circle or my outer circle? If it is in your inner circle, take immediate action. Do the work. If it is in your outer circle, you must practice the discipline of dropping it. Visualize yourself physically placing that worry outside the boundary of your responsibility. Say out loud, "This is not mine to carry." Chapter 3. The Detox of Expectations. One of the sneakiest forms of control is the expectations we place on other people. We all walk around with a secret manual in our heads. This manual contains the rules for how everyone in our life should behave. It says, "A good friend should text me back within an hour." It says, "A good partner should know why I am upset without me having to tell them." It says, "A good employee should care about this business as much as I do." But here is the catch: we never actually give the manual to anyone. We just quietly hold them to the standards written inside it, and then we feel deeply betrayed and resentful when they inevitably break the rules they didn't even know existed. Expectations are premeditated resentments. They are an attempt to control the behavior of autonomous human beings. When you attach your emotional well-being to how someone else acts, you hand over the keys to your happiness. If they act according to your manual, you feel good. If they deviate, you feel miserable. You become an emotional yo-yo on the string of other people's choices. Letting go of control requires a massive detox of expectations. You must trade your expectations for appreciation. This does not mean you abandon your standards. Standards and expectations are two different things. A standard is an internal boundary. I require honesty in a relationship. That is a standard. An expectation is an external demand. I expect you to never make a mistake and always say the perfect thing. When you drop your expectations, you allow people to be exactly who they are, rather than who you need them to be. You stop trying to mold your partner into a different person. You stop trying to force your children to fulfill your unlived dreams. You let them exist. And when you drop the manual, a beautiful thing happens. You finally get to see the people around you clearly. You begin to appreciate the good things they do, rather than constantly penalizing them for the things they don't do. You stop playing the role of the frustrated director in a play, and you simply take a seat in the audience and watch the story unfold. Chapter 4. The Paradox of Surrender. When we hear the word surrender, we usually associate it with weakness. We think of a soldier waving a white flag, giving up, and admitting defeat. We think surrender means becoming a passive victim of circumstance, lying down, and letting the world walk all over us. But in psychology and spiritual growth, true surrender is the exact opposite of weakness. It is the ultimate form of strength. Surrender does not mean inaction. Surrender means taking action without attachment to the outcome. Let's look at the metaphor of the sailor. A master sailor knows that he has absolutely no control over the ocean. He cannot command the wind. He cannot calm the waves. He cannot dictate the tides. If he tries to fight the ocean, his ship will break and he will drown. Does the sailor surrender by dropping the wheel and going to sleep in the hull? No. The sailor surrenders by accepting the wind exactly as it is, and then actively adjusting his sails to use the wind's momentum. He aligns himself with the reality of the present moment, rather than fighting for the reality he wishes he had. That is true surrender. It means doing your absolute best, preparing for the interview, writing the book, being a loving partner, and then opening your hands and releasing the results. You say, I have done the work. The outcome is no longer mine. When you attach your self-worth to a specific outcome, you are operating out of fear. You are saying, if I don't get the job, I am a failure. If this relationship ends, I am unlovable. But when you surrender the outcome, you operate out of trust. You say, I am going to try my best to get this job. If I get it, wonderful. If I do not get it, I trust that I will be okay. I trust that my worth is intact. I trust that redirection is often protection. Surrender is the moment you stop fighting reality. It is the moment you stop arguing with what is. When you stop resisting the current of the river and finally allow yourself to float, you suddenly realize you have all the energy in the world, because you are no longer wasting it fighting the water. Chapter 5. Navigating the liminal space. One of the hardest places to practice letting go is in the in-between. Anthropologists call this the liminal space. It is the hallway between two doors. You have left the old job, but you haven't found the new one. The relationship is over, but you haven't healed yet. You have moved to a new city, but it doesn't feel like home. You are no longer who you used to be, but you are not yet who you are going to become. The human brain hates the liminal space. The brain craves certainty above all else. It would literally rather be in a familiar, miserable situation than in an unfamiliar, neutral situation. This is why people go back to toxic exes or stay in abusive jobs. The misery is known. The void is terrifying. When we are in the liminal space, our control freak tendencies go into overdrive. We panic. We try to force doors open. We rush into new relationships before we are ready, just to avoid being alone. We take the first job offered to us, even if it's wrong, just to end the uncertainty. We cannot stand the discomfort of the hallway. But the liminal space is sacred. It is the only place where true transformation happens. A caterpillar does not become a butterfly by rushing the cocoon. It must sit in the dark, dissolve entirely, and allow biology to do its work. If you are in a season of uncertainty right now, your job is not to fix it. Your job is not to figure out the next 10 years of your life by tomorrow morning. Your job is simply to sit in the hallway and breathe. Let the old identity die. Grieve the loss of the past. Tolerate the discomfort of the void. When you stop frantically pulling on locked doors, your eyes will adjust to the dark, and you will eventually see the light shining from the right door. Trust the timing of your life. You are not falling, you are floating. Conclusion: opening your hands. We have covered a lot of ground today. We have looked at the exhaustion of the White-Knuckle Syndrome. We have learned to separate the circle of influence from the circle of concern. We have detaxed our expectations of others. We have redefined surrender not as giving up, but as letting go of the outcome. And we have learned to respect the sacred void of the liminal space. Now, the practice begins. Letting go is not a one-time event. It is not a switch you flip in your brain. It is a daily, sometimes hourly, practice. Your mind will naturally try to grip the steering wheel again. Your anxiety will flare up and tell you that you must manage everything or the world will end. When that happens, I want you to remember the metaphor of the tug-of-war. Right now, you are holding a thick, abrasive rope. On the other side of the rope is a giant, terrifying monster. The monster is made of your fears, your anxieties, the economy, the opinions of others, the past, and the future. There is a bottomless pit between you and the monster. You are pulling on the rope with all your might. Your hands are bleeding. Your muscles are trembling. You are terrified that if you lose the tug-of-war, you will be pulled into the pit. So you pull harder. You buy more self-help books. You plan more aggressively. You micromanage harder. But there is a secret to this game. You cannot outpull the monster. The monster is the universe. It is infinitely stronger than you. So, how do you win the game? You drop the rope. You simply open your hands and let it go. The monster falls backward. The tension instantly vanishes. You look at your hands, and you realize you are free. You never had to play the game in the first place. You cannot control the world. You cannot prevent heartbreak, failure, or loss. Life will bring you storms. But you do not need to control the storm, because you are built to withstand it. You are resilient. You are capable. You have survived 100% of your bad days. Stop trying to hold the ocean in your hands. Let the water flow. Take your foot off the imaginary brake pedal, let go of the door handle, and look out the window. The ride is actually quite beautiful when you stop trying to steer. Thank you for listening to the gravity of letting go. Open your hands. Breathe deep. And let life happen.